Welcome to the Pint Glass Football Podcast.
Pint Glass Football. I'm your host, Brad Fowler. What's up, PGF Nation? PFF recently released an article of the top 10 quarterback rooms in college football entering the 2024 season. We'll give our thoughts on this list and talk about some of the best quarterbacks in college football this year. But joining me, like always, my co-host, Alex Higdon. Alex, what is going on?
List. This is what we've been going through. Sometimes people hate them. Hey, if you've been looking at these top 100 music lists, you've probably been pulling your hair out. Well, guess what? We're going to do it again today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think it's a good opportunity to get familiar with some of the names that we're going to watch on Saturdays in the fall and talk about some of these really deep quarterback rooms as well. And like I mentioned, some of the top quarterbacks in this class. I think this might be a better class than people realize. Let's break it down here, Alex. I want to start with the Oregon Ducks because I think there's an argument to be made that this might actually be the deepest quarterback room in college football. It starts with Dillon Gabriel, who transfers to Oregon. He played at Oklahoma last year. Look, this guy can spin it. He pushes the ball down the field. He's going to add an explosive downfield attack that they didn't have as much of with Bo Nix last season. We know Bo Nix was a little bit more of a methodical underneath passer. Not Dillon Gabriel. This guy likes to attack downfield. He has a ton of experience, great pocket awareness. I think he's a big reason that most people have the Ducks ranked inside the top 5 to start the year, even after losing 8 players to the NFL. Now, they also brought in Dante Moore, a former 5-star recruit, played as a true freshman last year at UCLA. He's going to be the backup. He's going to be able to develop behind Gabriel. And they have third-string Austin Novosad, who's a 4-star recruit with a lot of upside. I think, once again, Alex, this might be the deepest quarterback room in college football.
So first things first, we have to talk about the realignment that's happening and why, when we start talking about these quarterback groupings, why they are so important. When you say you're going to the Big Ten, when you say you're going to the SEC, we'll just save that for later, but those are the two conferences that we have to talk about that are being impacted the most. So Oregon moving to the Big Ten, now you're in big boy country in terms of having to go against Ohio States, the Michigans, Penn States, and so on and so forth. You need to fortify your team all the way around. And why not start at the top position, which is the quarterback position, and then fortify the room going forward at least 2 to 3 years out as well by having a quarterback room. So when Dillon Gabriel leaves to the NFL, you have another guy that you assume can step right in and you can remain competitive as of now because you're in the Big Ten and a lot of teams are going to be trying to pluck not only your coaches, but get players to transfer away from you. So I think what Oregon has done is setting themselves up as they moved away from Bo Nix and now move into the Big Ten. I think they set themselves up to be a team that makes a lot of noise this year in this conference.
Yeah, Alex, and the team that they actually have number 1 on this list, I don't think they're as deep as Oregon's group, but I understand why PFF put them at the top, because they have maybe the best quarterback in all of college football, and that's Carson Beck. This is a guy who's decisive with the football, great pocket awareness, stands tall, gets through his reads, delivers an accurate ball. I watched a lot of tape on this guy yesterday and earlier today, Alex, getting ready for this podcast. He is a guy who's good throwing on the move. He can escape, make plays with his legs. I think he looks like a guy who could be a number 1 overall pick in April. I think Georgia is going to be really good this year, and he has a lot to do with it. Now, to round out the rest of that quarterback room, they have Gunnar Stockton and Arizona State transfer Jaden Rashada. Both of these guys were big-time recruits coming out of high school, but really it's about Beck here at the top because I think this guy is a fascinating prospect, and he's going to be a fun one to watch.
So, Brad, if we talk about what was happening last year, there was a lot of talk about Quinn Ewers being the top guy, possibly going into next year's draft. But like you said, I believe that Carson Beck, he's going to take a huge leap this year. I mean, since this guy has been a starter at Georgia from 2022 on, he's been above 70% in terms of completion. Obviously, 2022 was his first kind of real true tasting, But when you look at him last year, 72.5%, 3,941 yards, 24 TDs, 6 interceptions. You know that Georgia incoming class is going to feature some freaks. As you know, Georgia is one of those hunting grounds where you get a lot of players from. So there's a lot of players that stayed at home to go play with this kid, and they brought in a lot of transfers. So I expect a huge leap from Carson Beck this year. And as you said, to be the possible number one pick in next year's draft.
How about the Texas Longhorns, Alex? They made this list, and I wanted to highlight them because of a guy you just mentioned, Quinn Ewers. He looked like a top 10 pick last season. He has above average arm strength. He can make any throw on the field. He has shown exceptional accuracy. He can fit it into tight windows. He has a lot of big game experience. Now, when you look at this quarterback room, we have to mention his backup, of course, Arch Manning, the former number one overall recruit in 2023. We mentioned this in one of our exclusive YouTube videos. The expectations are so high for this Texas team now coming off of that playoff appearance. Now they're in the SEC. If Ewers struggles and if he slips up at all and this team drops a couple games early in this tough SEC schedule, I think Texas fans are going to start chanting for Manning, especially, Alex, after what we saw from him in that spring game.
Okay, so let's just address a few things here. First and foremost, yes, I only talked about Carson Beck in Georgia on purpose. That person that's behind him, I refuse to mention his name. It's a curse word for the University of Florida. If you know, you know. Now, on to the Texas Longhorns. So you're absolutely right. We just talked about Quinn Ewers. And by the way, if you have not checked out our YouTube page, we did go in depth a little bit more about Arch Manning and our feelings on Arch Manning, what he did in that spring game. But if you want to know more about that, go to the YouTube channel. But I will say, as you said, how that room is set up, and it's very tumultuous, and I think it's the most competitive room out of all the groupings that we're going to talk about, simply because of what you just mentioned. The name Arch Manning and what he did in the spring game and the pressure that is on Quinn Ewers to position himself back as, if not the top, but at least one of the top guys, because as we go through this list some more and mention some people not mentioned on this list, we're going to find that Quinn Ewers may be getting pushed down out of perhaps maybe that top 4 grouping as we talk about these other QBs. But it's so competitive. And like you said, if there is any type of misstep, Arch Manning there will be a cat call, pause, for Arch Manning to play. Or if Quinn Ewers happens to suffer any type of injury, this won't be a situation where he'll get the job back. Because I think Arch Manning, once he grabs a hold of this team, he's not going to let go.
He was so impressive in that spring game, like we mentioned on YouTube and like most of you guys saw because it was all over the internet after it happened. He was lights out. And I watched all the highlights from that game. He made so many big-time throws. Now, look, it's a spring game, so I don't want to overhype it too much, but the talent was on full display. And you could clearly see why there was so much hype around this guy. And it's not just because of the last name. Does that have a lot to do with it? Certainly. But he is a big-time talent in his own right. And I think you're right, Alex. This job is really going to be interesting because we know how good Quinn Ewers is, and we know he's the established starter here. But once again, if things get a little rocky, this isn't the Big 12 anymore. So he's playing at a whole nother level this year. This is going to be a huge test for him, Sarkisian, and this Longhorns program to see how they fare in a much, much tougher schedule. Now, speaking of the SEC, I think we have to mention, of course, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Jalen Milroe, coming back as the starter from last year. He's a big-time athlete. I don't think there's any denying that. I mean, he's a guy who's still developing as a quarterback, but he's a legit dual-threat guy, big-time arm. I'm really interested, Alex, to see this guy paired up in Kalen DeBoer's offense. As we know, Kalen DeBoer taking over now for Nick Saban. DeBoer has a history of developing quarterbacks, designing plays to highlight their skills. This is going to be fun to watch in Tuscaloosa. Now, the rest of the quarterback room still has some nice depth, and I understand why they're on this list because Ty Simpson, once again, is going to be the backup. He had some moments last year, and they've got top 20 recruits also at quarterback in Dylan Lonergan and Washington transfer Austin Mack. Now, Mac obviously followed DeBoer from Washington, so this quarterback room is interesting, and it's going to be deep.
Right, Jalen Milroe, I've been very impressed with his development. I mean, this was a guy, he was very raw, obviously a heck of an athlete. And probably if you didn't know if he was a quarterback, you would have thought he was a different skill position player or just simply listed as an athlete on the team. But I thought his maturation throughout the season, how he was coached up to perform to the level that he performed, because Alabama did not look like they should have been where they were, where they ended up towards the beginning of the season. But by the end of the season, they were exactly where myself and Brad, who bet on Alabama, pat ourselves on the back to be where they ended up being at the end. So I have a lot of respect. This is a kid that looks like he put in a lot of hard work to get to where he got to, and I think it can eventually pay off with a top third round draft positioning that he set himself up for if he has another good year and takes another step. But once again, as I talk about progression, what Caleb DeBoer has set up, bringing in Austin Mack, a guy who knows his offense, that's probably going to be there really to truly help the other guys, but then Ty Simpson able to step right in. That way they don't lose as many steps as you think they would have lost, transitioning from the great football coach of all time into the new Caleb DeBoer era. He's kind of set himself up for a modicum of success as well.
I think you can make a case that Jalen Milroe was arguably the most improved player in all of college football. We saw him make a tremendous amount of development during the course of the season and really started playing some good football, especially down the home stretch. So it's going to be really fun to see him take that next step in this new offense. Now, I wanted to highlight a couple other SEC teams here. Ole Miss Rebels. Jackson Dart is a guy to watch. He's back for his third season at Ole Miss. This is a talented guy, former four-star recruit. He's improved every single year he's been in college football. A lot of talent. Love his pocket mobility. I love that he keeps his eyes downfield and makes big-time throws. This is a fun quarterback to watch, and I think he's a riser in this quarterback class.
I love Lane Kiffin as a college coach. I love him in this position as a head coach, having a quarterback that he's grooming. And this is a guy, another quarterback that he's got, that he's been grooming for the past few years, that looks to take another leap, specifically being his would be his third year in this Ole Miss offense. So he should have everything fully under his belt and have full command of the offense. You have to take another step. I'm always going to talk about these quarterbacks taking another step. He's had two full starting seasons under this offense. So it's not like he was there and he was redshirted for 2 years and played a few games. No, you've had 2 full years in this offense. So you should now have at least, I would say, hopefully 75% of this playbook down, and maybe even a little bit more, so that you can unleash all of the knowledge that you have gained over the past 2 years under the tutelage of Lane Kiffin and take the next steps forward.
Yeah, last season, 23 touchdowns. He cut back on the interceptions, really had one of his best games in that Peach Bowl win over Penn State, almost 400 yards passing and 3 touchdowns. I mean, he was awesome to finish the year, and I think that is going to carry some of those momentum into this next season. I'm excited to watch him play. Did you know that Pint Glass Football is more than just this podcast? We have an exclusive newsletter. Sign up for free at pintglassfootball.com to receive articles and insights delivered straight to your inbox. But wait, there's more. We're excited to announce our brand new YouTube channel. Not only can you listen to our podcast on YouTube, but you'll also find exclusive video content waiting for you. So hit the pause button right now and go subscribe to our newsletter, and hit that subscribe button on YouTube to stay connected with the latest football news and our exclusive content. Underdog Fantasy is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. We personally love the pick'em game. Just pick between 2 and 5 players to build a pick'em entry. Pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. Download the Underdog Fantasy app and sign up today with promo code PGF. That's promo code PGF to claim your special pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. The official ticketing app of Pint Glass Football is now SeatGeek. I can't recommend them enough, guys. I've been using SeatGeek for years. You want to go to a game this season? SeatGeek is here to take the confusion out of buying tickets, making sure you get the best seats at the best prices. With SeatGeek, you'll never have to worry about overpaying for tickets again. How? They put a 0 to 10 score on each ticket, so you know you're getting a good deal. But here's the real game changer. You can get $20 off your first ticket purchase with the code PGFPOD. That's right, $20 off with code PGFPOD. This season, make every game day epic with SeatGeek. Download the SeatGeek app and remember to enter the code PGFPOD to grab your $20 discount. Alex, one team that made this list that I think was a little bit surprising was the Florida Gators. Now, I know that we're talking about quarterback rooms here, and they added a really talented young freshman who we'll talk about in a second. But give me your thoughts on your Florida Gators here with Graham Mertz coming back for his 6th season. What do you think about them making the list of one of the top quarterback rooms?
Oh, sorry, that was just an awkward pause because I didn't really believe that they were seriously on this list. It doesn't make any sense. Graham Mertz is not what we do at Florida. And I say we because obviously I'm a Florida fan. He's not. So I don't understand the even point of mentioning Graham Mertz. He is a game manager. He's not explosive. I think I don't even know what to describe him as except a game manager. I'm not going to make any type of specific NFL comp because I'm not even sure if he'll make the NFL. He looks like an undrafted free agent for the most part. I think they're on this list simply because there's anticipation. Because listen, Billy Napier, your job is on the line. So I think we're going to see the guy that the reason the Florida Gators are really on this list, which is the number 1 quarterback recruit, DJ Lagway, a dual threat quarterback who's more explosive than Graham Mertz. So I think that's why they're on the list, because there's a belief that we're going to see him way sooner. So essentially, they're on this list for one player, and I don't think Graham Mertz is a part of it. I think they just wanted to find a way to get the number 1 recruit on the list in DJ Lagway. Other than that, I don't know why the Florida Gators would be on this list at all.
I want to shift to Notre Dame because they're bringing in Riley Leonard. He's going to transfer over from Duke. This is a talented quarterback that I think is on a lot of NFL scouts' radar. I like what I've seen from Leonard last year. I think he's going to have success at Notre Dame with a better team around him.
I like this. I think Riley Leonard is a gamer, meaning like he's going to lay it all on the line each and every single game. I think he fits the culture. I think the fans are going to love him. And Marcus Freeman is a really good coach. He was a really great hire for this team as well. And if not for a small hiccup, well, 2 hiccups, that Louisville game and whatever happened at the end with at that Ohio State game, we would be talking about Notre Dame in a different light altogether going into this season. But Riley Leonard transferring over, I think it's a great move for the team. Like I said, he fits the culture from an academia standpoint as well as a quarterbackial, a word I've been using, thank you, Colin Coward, standpoint for Notre Dame. He's a leader. And like I said, when you have these type of guys and when he buys into the culture, he fits the culture immediately, he buys into the culture, I think Notre Dame is gearing up for another run at a possible playoff.
Now, we can't mention college football quarterbacks without mentioning Colorado and, of course, Shedeur Sanders. I love this kid's game, Alex. I love his pocket poise, his ability to read and react, whether it's pre-snap, post-snap, his knack to be able to feel the pressure and adjust. He throws on time with accuracy, especially in the short and intermediate routes. He's shown on tape that he can really thread the needle and fire it into small windows. He has nice footwork. He has a great release and mechanics. I think he has a shot to be a top 5 pick. Now, I know you're not as high on Shedeur Sanders as I am, but this kid is a really talented quarterback in college football.
Yeah, he's 1,000% a talented QB. I actually have no problem with Shedeur. I just wish we could probably see the best of Shedeur. And that doesn't mean just statistically. It's the whole thing that is being the quarterback of a team. And I kind of look more at the recruiting people. I guess Dion would be at the head of that in his organization, those guys that go out and get players, because I don't know if he has the horses to really show us what he can truly do to push him all the way to the top. I think he's definitely in the top 5 as of right now. Where you want to put him in the top, and I guess anywhere between 2 and 5, because I think Carson Beck is going to lead the way there. But anywhere between 2 and 5 coming into the seasons, wherever you want to put him. But I still don't know what Travis Hunter is. And Travis Hunter at some point I would think is going to make a decision. You don't want to play Iron Man football. We saw what they did to you last year. Now you're going into a year where you want to be in a position so you set up your draft stock moving forward. I know Jimmy Horn came back, and I don't need to go through the whole team, but I'm looking at and wondering, where are the weapons for a quarterback that we believe is a great talent? He should have more weapons on his team going into this new conference that is supposedly all wide open. They can score a lot. This team should have attracted more weapons from my standpoint to really showcase what Shedeur truly is. And I don't know if they've been able to do that with the current staff that does the recruiting. Sorry, Dion and staff, but I just think they could have done better here.
Now, Alex, some other quarterbacks that I think PGF Nation is going to want to watch this year and pay attention to. I want to start with Garrett Green, West Virginia quarterback. I think he's very underrated. He's an under-the-radar guy here going into college football in 2024. He's a guy that can spin it, and he can really attack with the deep ball and take the top off the defense. I think he's a player to watch. I think Drew Aller out of Penn State, former 5-star recruit, he had nobody at wide receiver last year. I think they're going to be better this year. Penn State is a team that I think can make some noise and maybe get into the playoff. And then Brady Cook from Missouri, another guy that's maybe flying under the radar a little bit here, but he had over 3,300 yards passing and 29 total touchdowns last year. I'm excited to see what he can do as well. And then my last guy that I want to mention, Alex, Cam Ward, transferring from Washington State to Miami to go play with Mario Cristobal and the Hurricanes. He's a guy to watch too. He was quietly one of the best quarterbacks in a deep quarterback conference in the Pac-12 last year. It's going to be really fun to see what he can do in South Beach.
Yeah, Brad, you mentioned Missouri. Missouri as a team is something that I've been told to watch out for. So I've actually been doing a deep dive on them, so I can absolutely concur with your thoughts on Brian Cook. But the other person that I want to mention, or actually get your thoughts on, DJU, that transferred to Florida State. What are your thoughts on him? This is the former overall number 1 quarterback that went to Clemson, coming off of Trevor Lawrence. So he should have been able to handle the reins and move forward, but he couldn't handle it there. He transferred to Oregon State last year. They were coming off a 10-3 year. This year, past season, they went 8-5. I'm sure that was probably more of a letdown. They expected maybe to still be that competitive as they were the prior year, but now he's in Florida State at a bigger school, and this is going to be his final year where he's going to make a push to show that he's worth a first round quarterback pick in next year's draft.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is he's been disappointing because the expectations we had for this guy, like you said, big-time 5-star recruit, he just hasn't lived up to it. And now he's kind of bouncing around college football, trying to find a home, trying to find a place that fits. Oregon State was supposed to be the perfect fit. With that style of offense, it was supposed to be able to highlight his skills. And look, he had some moments for the Beavers last year, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it accumulated to what they thought it would. And now he's going to be at Florida State on a bigger stage nationally. He's going to have some talent around him and another good coaching staff. It'll be really interesting to see if he can finally kind of put it all together based on what the talent we saw from him coming out of high school. If you enjoy the podcast, do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Once again, I'm Brad Fowler. He's Alex Higdon. This is Pint Glass Football, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Pint Glass Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at PGF Podcast.
Zencastr is the ultimate web-based podcasting solution. It provides high-quality audio and video podcast production and hosting. With a full suite of professional tools, podcasters can seamlessly record, produce, and publish studio-quality content all from one dashboard. Zencastr's post-production process takes the headache out of audio production. Set the right podcast loudness and levels while reducing background noise with a click of a button. Coordinating all your guests to record in person is painful and tedious. Easily invite up to 11 participants per recording with one click. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my code PGFP, and you'll get 30% off your first 3 months of Zencastr Professional. I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.